This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
Well,
And I'm Chad, the gaming dad.
And I think Will just got really quiet for some reason.
get over here. I just killed
Why
it.
is your mic so quiet?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, today is Throwback Thursday, because that's how I say it now. I don't know, whatever. And Chad is our guest today. We're going to be talking about something that he enjoys quite a bit, the Intellivision. But before we get into that, why don't you tell everybody about your channel?
Well, channel's Chad, the gaming dad. I say that it's dedicated to all of us grown-ups that know that you'll never outgrow video games. That no matter how old you get, you don't have to quit playing games. Stay there. Let's see a picture of my dad where I just try to get some revenge on him there. But you'll find all kinds of different stuff on my channel. It's not just one thing. The one thing it is video games, but that's as specific as it gets. There's a little bit of everything in there, some retro, some new, all that. So yeah, this was a fun one to make.
Yeah, I like watching channels that cover older tech, like yours. I like Adam Korlick quite a bit because he does like generational console videos, which is amazing. I really enjoy seeing the history of video games. So if you guys like that too, go check out Chad the Gaming Dad's channel. Go to put hyphens around it, Chad the Gaming Dad, or I think he'll come up even if you just type it without the hyphens. And go subscribe. I'll have a link to his channel in the description below. So if you've gotten through 4 videos, we're almost at like 3 hours here. If you haven't gotten through 4, we're past 3 hours. I don't know where I'm at right now. But if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. That's an order for the shrimp army here. Okay, so the Intellivision. The Intellivision, I'm going to give you guys a brief description on it, and anything I say wrong, Chad's going to be like, really? You screwed that up? And then I'll be like, my bad, man. And then after that, he's going to roll into the next series of discussions we're going to have about the Intellivision. So here we go.
All right.
The Intellivision is a home video game console released by Mattel Electronics in 1979 for test markets, but wide release in 1980 in North America. The name Intellivision is a portmanteau of, I think I said that right, of Intelligent Television. Development of the console began in 1977, the same year as the introduction of its main competitor, the Atari 2600. In 1984, Mattel sold their video game assets to a former Mattel Electronics executive and investors that would become the INTV Corporation. Games development started in 1978 and continued until 1990 when the Intellivision was discontinued. From 1980 to 1983, over 3 million Intellivision units were sold. According to the company's 1982 Form 10K, Mattel had almost 20% of the domestic video game market, and I'm sure Tommy would love to recapture that amount of a percentage of the market, so good luck, Tommy. Mattel Electronics provided 25% of the revenue and 50% of the operating income in fiscal 1982. That's quite a bit of money. In 1983, 750,000 Intellivision master components were sold, and more than 3 million units from 1980 to 1983. In all, 2 variants of the Intellivision were produced. I believe Chad has both of them. You feel free to show them off now.
Yeah.
There was the original in 1979/1980.
This is the original with the wood grain, and then they came out with the Intellivision 2, which was more of a redesign. It's a lot. It was cheaper, I think, and it's like more plastic and things like that.
I don't like that one nearly as much.
No, this one's okay. I think my parents bought this because they thought that it was like a better Intellivision. This was before the days like what we have now with PS1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all that. Just because it has a 2 doesn't mean that it was like the next one. Back then they just made it again. Honestly, I think they just made it cheaper.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
And it's missing some of the hardware that the original has because it won't do certain things that the other one will do. The other one will play everything. This one I do not believe plays any of these IntelliVoice games. You have to have the IntelliVoice that plugs into it, which is this bad boy here. But this won't work in this. And then so you lose out on some of those games. And where the heck is it? I got a whole pile here. Yeah, here you go. I showed this on one of my videos. You would actually find games like this at the store, not for use with Intellivision 2. Won't work. Third-party stuff, you know. So those are the 2. There you go. I think there was also a big keyboard when it originally came out that you could put this into, great big keyboard, and it was supposed to be some kind of home computer. And I think that's why my grandfather wound up buying this for me when I was a kid, because he thought I'd learn how to type or something. We never wound up getting the keyboard. But yeah, it was expensive too when it came out. I believe it was like $400, which in 1980 money was like $1,000 now. So it wasn't a cheap thing to get. And guess what? It still works. I could plug this in right now and plug some games in. Might have to use some alcohol on the connectors or whatever, but just because they're the games, but it still works. This video that you see here, I actually captured some of it because I was showing how you could play it on different things, but I captured some of the video off of this unit that was copyright 1979, back when I was just a mere 5-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah. Good stuff. They even had this guy do ads for him. What an intimidating figure. So
just to finish off this little explanation, I'm glad to see both those consoles alive and well and in Chad's possession, because we know he's going to maintain them like other people probably would toss these in the trash. No, Chad is the guy. He's going to do it. He's going to keep these consoles in good condition and have them for show and tell pieces forever. So the other two variants of the Intellivision, there was the 3 and the 4, both were canceled in 1983 amidst the video game crash. And I saw some images of them. It all looks like prototype images, so I don't know if it's really worth showing right now. But in 2009, the video game website IGN named Intellivision the number 14 greatest video game console of all time. It also remained Mattel's only video game console released until the release of the Hyperscan, which I don't know if you remember that. That is such an odd console.
I didn't have that, no.
You want to see it? I'll show you guys. It's a ridiculously weird concept for although honestly it might be similar to what Tommy's planning to do with the Amico, because it's like little cards that you scan into the console. See? See these little cards. You plug it in and then you scan a card.
I do remember seeing that now. Yeah, okay. Yep. It's
such a weird concept back in 2009, 2006. I'm sorry. I remember wanting one, but not knowing why I wanted one. So there's that.
They looked like they were late to the game, because when I saw the intro of that video, I thought, man, that thing looks really 90s. And then I'm like, no, it was 2006. Who produced that thing? It almost reminded you of those like old Sega, those weird 90s Sega commercials and stuff. But
oh yeah,
the Hyperscan had that 90s name too. Hyper. So
Hyperscan.
Hyper, watch out. Everything's crazy.
And then famously, the Intellivision brand and games are currently with Tommy Tallarico, producing the Intellivision Amico, April of 2021. So that's the short version of the history of the Intellivision. I'm sure that other channels can do it much better than I did, but there you go. If you don't know what Intellivision is, now you have some inkling of an idea. So what do we remember about the original Intellivision? What was our first introduction to the console? I'll let Chad go first, since he's probably got the most first-hand experience of the three of us.
This was my first console I ever got. My grandpa had an Atari at his house, and me and my cousins would play that, but I never got an Atari. I got this. And this was the first thing that I got, and it came packaged with blackjack and Vegas games. So here I am, 5 years old, learning how to play poker on it. Grandpa thought I was going to learn how to type, and little did he know I was playing blackjack and poker, because that's what came with it, And games like this baseball game, that was great. We talked to Tommy, and he's saying that the new games are going to have AI. Back then they didn't have AI. So there's my dad. I used to have to play against him all the time, and he would just whoop my butt all the time. I remember also playing baseball with this thing. You got the two controllers, and they're physically attached. They don't come off. They're just like on these phone cords, right? So you got two controllers. I remember sitting on the floor and pitching with this one and then hitting with this one so that I could play it alone to just get practice on the baseball game. And then it would hit, and then you'd have to throw your one controller down and then grab the other one to run the guy over to, but then your base runner would stop running. It was not ideal, but I remember doing that. That was fun. So yeah, I played the crap out of that thing. It went everywhere. If I went to go visit my grandparents for a while when I was a kid, that was packed in the bags and hooked up on their TV when I got there. So it was great. My sister played it with me, but she was a little younger than me, so She didn't play it much. It was already kind of getting old by the time she was old enough to play stuff. But yeah, that's why it still looks like this, because I still have the box. I have all my games in their boxes. Everything is
That's
here.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably have a whole pile of them. I mean, they're well used. They're well used. It's not like all the games in all the boxes, well, you had to save them because all the games, these overlays that you see on here, like this one for Demon Attack, you have to put it in there to know what to press. So yeah, when I was a little kid, I had to learn how to be like real picky with my games and not lose the pieces, because if you wouldn't know how to play, because otherwise it looks like a phone. So
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, this is just, I got a whole box down here filled with all my old stuff, and every crease that's on this box, every little bit of wear and tear came from me when I was little. So I just love looking at that stuff. So when I have a bigger house and more room, I will have a shelf of Intellivision just so I can see it. So,
And on the end of that shelf, the Amico.
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I remember about the Intellivision, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I played an Intellivision game was one of those Intellivision collections, and I think it was for the Game Boy Advance, if I remember correctly. It was either that or it was
There's a
some
3DS one.
I actually didn't get a 3DS until
Okay.
2019.
Mhm.
I was really late on the 3DS train. I had a Vita before I had a 3DS, if that tells you
Okay.
anything.
Some of those compilations were rough though, because they're kind of like emulating it, and this thing is
Mhm.
really tough to emulate for. If you get a Raspberry Pi or whatever, you can't just throw Intellivision games on there. You almost have to go find one of these things, because you unique controller. It's tough to emulate this,
Mhm.
and that's how it is. And so a lot of those things that you're talking about, like on the PS2, and that some of them have sound issues, some of them have other things that are wrong with them because they're essentially emulating it, and it just doesn't work great.
Oh no, it was the GameCube version I played. It was this one.
Okay, yeah,
That's what I played.
that I talked about that in one of the videos that I did with. I don't have the GameCube version, but I do have the Xbox and the PS2 version, and then also the one that's on the 3DS. And 3DS one's pretty fun. You can sit and lay down and play that. But
And the Circle Pad probably does a decent job with
Mm-hmm.
emulating the original controller.
well, and it's nice because these overlays, the bottom screen becomes
Oh,
the
that's
overlay.
cool.
Mm,
That's
that's
really
So
cool.
it's just like holding the old controller. It's great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my first experience, was playing one of these compilations, and our buddy Timmy, Tell Me More from his channel, has already told me that when I get the Amico, he's gonna ship me his Intellivision consoles. I can compare them for a weekend and then send it back to him. So that'll be fun.
It's a lot of shipping, but yeah, that's cool.
Or maybe I'll just have Timmy and his family come up for a weekend and have some fun. We'll see.
That'd be cool.
Well, we'll see
Oh.
what happens. But I'm excited to actually physically play one, since I've only played emulated versions on other consoles.
Mhm.
I know that probably is just like, to you, you're like, need to play the original hardware. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
It works better on the original hardware, but as long as you're playing them, it's good. The other thing that's cool is, I believe, if you look this up, if I'm not mistaken, this was 16-bit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so if everybody gets all into the bit wars, they didn't get into like 16-bit with the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo and everything. Well, this thing was competing against the Atari and had that. So some of the graphics on this were advanced at the time. It did a lot more stuff than the other consoles would do, and so it was kind of cool. You can find some games on this that just won't play on an Atari, or if you do play it on the Atari, it's like apples and oranges. It doesn't even look like the same game. So Intellivision's the way to go. You got to definitely try it, especially if you're into Atari stuff and retro things like that. Find a way to play some Intellivision stuff, because there's some quality stuff in there for sure.
100%. I've been interested in this since the get, especially since the controller on the Amico looks like the original Intellivision controller.
Yep.
I find that so interesting, and how they came to that decision. But
Yeah.
the more I hear about it, the more I think it was the right decision.
Yeah. Well, these games would lend themselves to that. And this, I also compared it to the analog sticks that we eventually got. I used to actually have a thing for this that you would stick on here, and it had a joystick that came up,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could use it like that. But you can't really see bumped into that, but you can't see it too well. But like, see how, like, you can hear it. it clicks. It's got a big spring in there, so you can like just push it down. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but it really rotates all the way around. So pretty responsive, especially for the day. Like you could play all kinds of stuff with that, and it worked really well.
So what do you guys think of all these brands, Atari and Intellivision, making big comebacks in this year, or the next year and a half, I should say?
Do you really think Atari is making a big comeback?
In a different way, I do think Atari is making some kind of a brand comeback. I don't know if it'll actually make enough sales to make a comeback, but the brand is actually being recognized because it is releasing a console and all the micro consoles and new Atari games. Like, I'm trying to remember what the latest one was, but they are releasing like what's that game with the ship that drives around? Is it Gradius? Not Gradius. Tempest, the new Tempest game 4000. So Atari is putting out new games. I'm just not sure which subsidiary or part of the like spread out Atari franchise is doing it.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem that Atari always had, even with the Crash back then, is there was too many cooks in the kitchen. And with Tommy taking over the whole thing and kind of putting his own stamp on there and everything, it's love it or hate it, it's going to have a solid vision behind it. You know what I mean? It's not going to be all kinds of this and that. It's going to be what he's saying he's trying to make. And that's going to help it, at least, that you'll, like I said, love it or hate it. If you love it, you'll know what you're getting. Whereas the Atari thing, who knows sometimes. So many different people own bits and pieces of that all over the place. So
what do you guys think is the single most important thing that would make the Amico a success?
Just fulfill the promises that Tommy's making. I realize it's like multiple things, but I mean, it's at the point where, because it really is bucking the trends of today, that if it really does what he's saying it's going to do, it's going to be successful because it's so different. By just bringing in it's making old new again.
Just make it simple and make it fun.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's what he's talking about, is he just wants to take out all of the complexity, not because that's a bad thing in some of our other systems like PS4s and 5s and all these things, but not everybody wants to get that deep into something to make it work. So yeah, simplicity, I think, is the key for him.
And the thing from talking to him that I think is the most important thing is the word of mouth, right? So your hardcore gamers are not going to be into this necessarily for themselves, but to play with their family, right? So you might get a PS5 and you might get an Amico, you know what I mean? And the Amico would be reserved for more family-oriented gaming.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a great addition to other things, and then for some people it'll be the only thing they want because they just want that, something simple.
Kind of like how the Nintendo Switch was the also bought console of this generation, where people would buy a PS4 or an Xbox One, but they would also get the Switch. If they could have that attach rate where people are buying PS5 and Xbox Series X, but also get the Amico because of what it is and how different it is, that would be a win in my book. And I think if they could get that kind of attach rate amongst hardcore gamers, the hardcore gamers are going to shill it, for lack of better words, to their friends and family, and then they're gonna be like, wow, this is amazing, this is like the next Wii, I want this too. And I think that could work really well for them. But you have to come up with a good word.
Got to come up with a good word. Like, remember you used to have like the Wii S3? They'd say you have to have both.
Yeah.
So we got to find a way to attach Amico to PS5 or Xbox Series X or something.
It's the PS5 Amigo, the Amigo to the PS5.
It's its friend.
There you go.
Pretty
Anyways, anything else you guys want to say about Intellivision?
Play it. Give it a try. If you never did, you'll like it. It's good.
Yeah. Other than the fact that I've never actually played the original system. However, it's instantly recognizable, so everyone knows what that system looks like, even if they've never had it.
That's true.
Like with the Amico, I knew exactly what system that was before even being told what it was supposed to be modeled after, just because it has such a recognizable shape and, yeah.
It's definitely unique, and it's going to stand out amongst all this other stuff. So Absolutely. I think he's onto something. Tommy might just be onto something.
Might be. He might be onto something. Yeah. Isn't that what he said himself? As always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I'm Chad, the Gaming Dad.
And go watch our Monday episode to hear more about the Amico.
Definitely.
And we will see you
on the next CHRILLCAST. Bye, guys.
See ya.